President Reagan's visit to Dothan. Your host for this live coverage, John Williams.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, people all over the Wiregrass. You are now looking at Air Force One, and yes, it's bringing President Ronald Reagan to Dothan, Alabama. It'll be a historical visit. It's the first time in the 100-year history of the city of Dothan and the Wiregrass area that a president has come to visit us. And today, my friends, we are going to make history, or at least Ronald Reagan is going to make history for us. You're looking at Air Force One now as the giant aircraft sets down at the Dothan Airport. On board a number of dignitaries that traveled with the president, as well as the congressmen and senators from this area. And we'll be able to see them as they arrive in just a moment. And we'll go to the airport a little bit later on and talk about some of the things there. What you see also is a great lack of numbers of people at the airport, and that's because the airport has been made off limits to the public for the president's arrival. The public will get a chance to view the president down the road a bit. We'll check in with those a little bit later on. But Air Force One is down on the soil of Dothan, Alabama. And I know the people of western Georgia, the Florida Panhandle, the city of Dothan, the county of Houston, the entire Wiregrass are extremely happy and today very honored to welcome President Ronald Reagan. I'm John Williams, and we welcome you to our program. We'll be with you for the next hour and a half to 2 hours. I have as my guest Wally Hinesley, who is a tax expert, a tax attorney. We'll be talking with him a bit later on about tax reform because that's what the president is here for. He's going to talk about tax reform, and as I understand, it'll be a specific statement. So we'll learn about that a bit later on. Let's now go back to the airport as Air Force One begins its taxiing back around and to the airport, and we'll get a chance to see the president as he disembarks from the aircraft. You see the number of reporters. A tremendous number of reporters from all over the country have arrived in our city. They've been here the last few days. And really they came in with the advanced Secret Service team. They started setting up their particular facilities to be able to do special reports of their own from this area. You see right now to your left, Maryland Area Register. You see on the right in the red jacket, former Mayor Kenneth Everett. You'll also see, I believe, I'm not able to tell too clearly from my vantage point, but I believe with his back to us is Bill Enns, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be able to get a closer look at them a little bit later on. Secret Service people, security all around. Our reporter, Mike Lewis, is at the airport, and a little bit later on, Mike is going to talk to the airport manager, John Norton, and he'll tell us more about how things have been set up over there. By the way, I just identified the wrong person. Instead of Bill Enns, that's Emily Fulmer, who's the mayor of Montgomery and the head of the Republican Party for the state of Alabama. I didn't know earlier that he was going to be here, but as you saw, he is. There's the limousine, by the way, that the president will be traveling in, and a number of reporters around it. Air Force One is out of our sight right now. It's going on down the runway and will make its turn and come back to us. It shouldn't take but just a matter of a few moments. Again, I remind you, the airport was cordoned off. The public's not allowed for this particular arrival point for the president. But what a day for the city of Dothan, and what a day for the entire Wiregrass. This is not, by the way, a political visit. The president did not and said early on that this was not a visit to promote anyone in particular. It's a visit to promote his tax reform package, even though there will be a number of Republicans as well as Democrats around. It would be very difficult to hide politics from this because of our situation here in Alabama, because we're still waiting to see who the Democratic nominee for the governorship will be. The Republican nominee is Guy Hunt, and as I understand, he's also somewhere in the crowd, just where I'm not sure. Again, we're waiting for the president's official arrival. He is on the ground. Air Force One is here. The giant aircraft. They have lots of information on this particular aircraft. For those of you who are buffs of this particular area, it's a giant one. This is the second Air Force One, by the way, and this particular one, they call it 27,000. Air Force One 27,000, and it was Gerald Ford's aircraft. Richard Nixon used it for just a short while. Jimmy Carter used it quite a bit. And President Reagan has really given this aircraft a lot of use since he's been in office. This is his sixth year, 2 years into his second term, nearly 2 years. We thought we'd never see this sight, didn't we? Air Force One arriving, bringing the President of the United States to Dothan, Alabama. A lot of jokes were going around earlier this morning of how some of the national media were pronouncing the name of our city. And, of course, we've all heard the Dothans said many times in national commercials. But I was very pleased earlier this morning to watch Douglas Edwards and his news break on CBS when he pronounced our town correctly. Dothan, Alabama. We welcome you, Mr. President. It's a long 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours for President Reagan. He's going to motor into the city. We don't know exactly what the route will be. They didn't tell us the first part. We do know one section of it. We'll switch over a little bit later on and let you see that. He will be at the Civic Center. He'll be making a key speech on tax reform. And Wally Hinesley, a tax attorney, is here with me. We'll talk about tax reform a little bit later on. We'll also have some of the officials at the Civic Center come down and talk with us. Let us know their feelings. Naturally, they're all elated that President Reagan is coming to our city. He's probably one of the most popular presidents. As a matter of fact, one poll says he is the most popular president since polling began. An article in the current issue of Time magazine gives Ronald Reagan a 68% appeal factor. That's a positive appeal factor. The public absolutely adores this man. They like his air for ceremony, his fun things that he likes to do. He's just an uncommon man and a very uncommon job. He likes to think of himself as a down-home person. As a matter of fact, when they were setting the stage for the president to come, they asked, the advance team asked specifically that the president be allowed to enjoy down-home cooking. So on the menu will be chicken, fried chicken. And I'm sure there'll be peanuts there somewhere because we are the peanut capital of the world. You can see Air Force One rolling in now. The president should be disembarking any second. You'll see that famous smile. They call it a boyish grin for a 75-year-old president. But he'll be, I don't know if he'll be first off. We'll see in just a moment. There'll be a number of our representatives there. As I've been informed, Congressman Doug Dickinson's on board, as well as Senator Jeremiah Dothan and Senator Howell Heflin. And who else? We don't know. There were some reports that other senators and congressmen, maybe other congressmen from Alabama would be on board. We just don't know. We'll try to identify them as the program goes along. You see the door open there now in Air Force One. They'll roll the stairs up to the aircraft in just a moment. Everyone's waiting with anticipation. You know, we know he's here now, and we know the aircraft is down now, and that alone is a history-making event. But when he absolutely steps down on our soil, I think you're going to hear quite a cheer. And those of you watching at home and could not go to the Civic Center, couldn't get there to get a ticket, or didn't want to go brave the temperatures downtown and the giant crowd that's lined up there, those of you at home, you may want to just stand up and give a little cheer. Get the stairway locked into place. And you can see our local dignitaries right down front. You can spot the red jacket with Kenny Everett. He is the spokesman. Was picked to be the spokesman. See the person in the doorway motioning to push the stairway a little closer. They'll lock it into place. And in just a moment, I'm sure that we'll get a chance to see President Reagan. Everyone moving closer. Everyone at the airport just craning their necks to get the first look at him. Of course, we're here at the TV station craning our necks with them. We can see people leaning and trying to get a look indoors. Of course, it's impossible to do, but we try, don't we? Military attaché, who we don't know, advance party. Of course, you won't be able to miss the president because he'll be the guy with the big grin and the hand in the air. We'll see in just a moment. Some of the dignitaries. It could happen any moment. In a little while, I want to be able to give you, or read to you a portion of what Time magazine said about him. I thought it was quite apropos for this time of year. There he is. Ronald Reagan, arriving in Dothan, Alabama. Welcome, Mr. President. We're glad to have you. A small crowd of officials at the airport. As I said earlier, the airport was off getting interference. Wouldn't you know it, as the President arrives, something fades in and fades out. We'll have that back for you in just a moment, but Ronald Reagan is here, and we're mighty proud of it. He's going to be with us for the next hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. He will be making a key speech at the Dothan Civic Center, where 2,500 people lined up to buy tickets to have dinner with the President. And it should be fun. We'll be able to go back to them. If we have one of the other shots at the Civic Center, we might be able to cut away there and see what that crowd looks like. But we do want to be able to get back to the President as quickly as possible at the airport as soon as that, because you got lots of people, and that means lots of wires, too, to be kicked around. And there we're back at the airport now. President shaking hands with Emory Farmer, the head of the Republican Party. Just Mayor Farmer's right is former Mayor Kenneth Everett. President waving at the crowd of onlookers at the airport. A small crowd. There's Congressman Dickinson coming in right behind the President. You see Hal Heflin right behind him. Secret Service agents moving around the car, of course, making sure security's tight. We're going to It really is an awesome task, one that you'd have to envy these guys for the great job that they've done, protecting a man like this who travels a lot and is not really afraid of anything. He'll go anywhere. He'll stop and visit a crowd of people. He'll hug a child. He'll shake a hand in an audience. He would probably be a very difficult man to protect. We're looking through the window of the limousine now. President Reagan is on the far side, as you can see, conversing. I wish we had a microphone in there so we could hear what he had to say. Of course, we don't. That would be impossible. We have Mike Lewis at the airport. I don't know if Mike is anywhere close by, so I could get some of his thoughts right now as to what the crowd was like when the President arrived. You know what goose pimples are like. You get those little shivers that say, hey, you've just seen a part of history. You've been a part of it. You are looking at it. And for the rest of our lives, we'll be able to look back and say, wow, I was there, or I saw it on this day, July the 10th, 1986. Ronald Reagan arrived in Dothan, Alabama. It's not every city in the nation that gets this honor. He's the first president that has ever visited us. Now, we've had other people who went on to become presidents. Jimmy Carter, for one, passed through here campaigning a number of years back, but Ronald Reagan is the very first president to arrive. We have Mike Lewis standing by. Mike, can you hear me?
I can certainly hear you. I don't know whether or not you can see me. We have quite a bit of commotion here. The presidential motorcade is moving past the press reviewing stand, and a lot of people walking around. You were asking about the crowd reaction. We've had a slow crowd this morning. It really built up within the last hour or so, and mostly, as you said, it's composed of press members, news media from all over the country, and just about everywhere else, as you can imagine. We believe that the president will be brought inside the facility, the holding area in the airport for a while. Then he will leave. It is not believed that he will leave directly from this point right now to the Civic Center. The airport is pretty much closed to the public. There are a large number of spectators, I should say, who are on the outside of the fence, who have a distant view of the president. So some people actually managed to get a glimpse of the president. I believe I'm now within camera range here. And that's about all we have right now. John, we have to wait and see, I guess. The president right now is inside the building, I understand, and it'll be a couple of minutes before he's back out again, and we'll give you some more comments as to what he's doing and where he's going.
All right, thank you very much, Mike Lewis. We'll check back with you a little bit later on.
Yes, sir.
Quite a crowd at the airport, a small crowd, as we said, because the airport was cordoned off. People were not allowed there for security reasons. And the motorcade route from this point on into Dothan was not reported. There are only so many routes he could take, roundabout routes. Matter of fact, we've heard speculation that he'd be going by the new malls, the new mall area where all the development is going on right now, so they can show some of the progress going on in our city. which many people think is a great idea. I, for one, we don't know the route around the circle, if he's going to the right, if he's going to the left, if he goes out to 231, turn back on the circle, coming around. But the thing that we do know is that he will be coming up on Highway 52 a bit later on. You're looking at the roadway now on the John Murphy Boulevard, downtown Dothan. He will be coming on here. You see all the people who've gathered there, hundreds of people from all over this part of Alabama. You see this giant sign, and people are still clamoring to get to a position where they can see the president when he comes by. We're scanning back to the left side across the utilities section, a wide shot leading up to the Civic Center, which is the ultimate location that President Reagan will be coming to, and he'll be making a statement a little bit later on. We've got some reporters all along the way, and we'll be able to take a look at them and some comments from them a little bit later on. You're looking inside the Civic Center. It must be a true moment of anticipation there for all these people. They've been there for probably half an hour, 45 minutes, and they're waiting and waiting until the president arrives. And we'll pick up some more activity in just a moment. Let's take a break, and I'll be back in just a moment.
Continental Championship Wrestling Saturday night at the Dothan Civic Center, match time 8:30 p.m. In a steel cage match, the Bullet takes on El Fuego. In a six-man tornado tag, Tommy Rich, Steve Armstrong, and the Intern takes on Robert Fuller, Jimmy Golden, and Dr. Tom Pritchett. For the Continental title, no DQ, Brad Armstrong defends against Jerry Stubbs. For the U.S. Junior title, Jim Horner takes on Roy Welch. Continental Championship Wrestling Saturday night at the Dothan Civic Center. Go with the best. Go with the NWA.
Smith Motor Company is having a July Price Buster sale. No closing time. 50 units will be sold for only $400 down. Payments as low as $120 a month. I trade in on-the-spot financing, easy credit terms. Over 300 units in stock to choose from. Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and all military people welcome. Folks, you can't beat a Smith Motor deal anywhere. That's why we sell more cars for less money at the used car supermarket of the Southeast. Smith Motor Company, 300 South Oaks in Dothan.
WTV. And welcome back to the presidential visit to the city of Dothan. We're glad to have you with us. We're certainly glad to have President Ronald Reagan in town with us. We wish you had a TV set with him so we could tell him via the TV, but we're mighty proud to have him in Dothan with us. He just arrived by Air Force One at Dothan Airport. Mike Lewis is standing by now at the airport. He's got John Norton with him. And Mike, I know you want to talk to John about how things looked around the airport and the feelings about the president arriving.
That's right, John. First of all, let me mention that the president has departed during the commercial break. He entered the limousine, and they are en route, as far as we know, back to the Dothan Civic Center and the parade now. With me right now is Dothan Airport Manager, Mr. John Norton. John, well, congratulations, I guess, are in order for you and the fine job that your people here have done working with the government, making things operate very smoothly for this first visit of the president.
Well, thank you. We have worked. It's taken the whole crew's effort, and this has been a real experience for everybody. You know, the president coming into our airport and our city is a great event, and I will say this, they're the smoothest bunch I've ever worked with. It was no problems and no conflict. It worked out just beautifully, and this airport's been rebuilt and redone since we got the word, because you know what it takes to support the president's visit, and we've done it, and we're quite proud of what we did.
Well, let me ask you something. Yesterday we were chatting rather candidly about the preparations, and you mentioned that the White House, one of the preparation teams, was commenting on the quality of the facilities here. What actually did they say?
Not only one, but I had three different teams: the White House Support Detachment, the Secret Service, and also the people that do the search of the area. They told me that they were just amazed when they came to a town like Dothan and we had a facility like this. Our airport is unique. It's a 8,500-foot runway. It's clear. You know, it's clear all the way around. There's no obstacles, and the facility has got everything you need. For example, we parked all three of the Secret Service vehicles at the president's car in the firehouse. That was no problem. We've had room for it. We provided offices for them in my office and the conference room I have, and everything has just fallen in place. It's just been great.
Well, how does it feel? Over your shoulders sits Air Force One. How does that feel?
I am in awe. I'll tell you. Everybody, even Secret Service, tell me, Roger Manon, who's the head of the Secret Service here, he told me that, he said, even when I see it land, tears come out. He said it's one of those things. I think it is. It's a real experience to know that the president is in that aircraft, and it's a beautiful plane to begin with.
Well, what was your first impression? I know I was smiling from ear to ear, even though the camera didn't pick it up. When the president first walked off the plane, what was your impression?
My impression was that's the greatest man in the country right now, you know. It's, no question about it. When he walked out, he was in command and he was in charge.
I've done a story on Air Force preparations and the security, which we'll be looking at later on, but let me ask you a question concerning that again. Exactly how closely did you work with government agencies, say, such as the Secret Service, in preparing for the president?
Well, I worked with them since last Wednesday. I got a call that the plane was coming in, and I didn't know the president was on it. Of course, they didn't verify that until it was announced, but when I talked to people in Washington, I knew it was the president's plane. Whether he was going to be on it or not, I didn't know, but his plane was coming. And since that time, I've, from 8 till about 8 at night, we've been working with the Secret Service, the White House Support Detachment from the Air Force. I've worked with them, and we've had to work with the White House Communication. Believe it or not, you can probably take my shoe and call Washington because we got a phone stuck about everywhere you can imagine around here.
The Air Force, the airport seems to be quite wired up. Well, how many law enforcement agencies from the area here? I understand they're cooperating as well.
Well, the city police were, the head of the Secret Service got the city police, and then we had to go out to get additional support. We've got County Sheriff Department, Dale County, Houston County, Midland City, Napier Field Police, Headland Police. We've got police from all over. And they're part of it, and I'm sure they're enjoying themselves, too.
Okay, one more quick question. Air Force One, as we mentioned, is over your shoulder. It's back there. Everybody can see it. What is being done right now? Can you tell us? I noticed there are quite a few lines going out to the airplane. I believe connections to the White House.
They will have telephones. The phones that are going out there tie into the White House switchboard, and they can talk to anywhere, and there's a satellite antenna, and they can talk to any place they want to talk to if they have to. The pilot, the crew members, they can call anywhere. It's a worldwide communications network.
Okay. And one point I'd like to mention, John, when the president does return, he will be probably making a statement. I heard, maybe you could elaborate further on this, Mr. Norton. The U.S. Precision Helicopter Team out of Fort Rucker, which recently took top honors and was congratulated officially here at Dothan Airport about a week ago, will be congratulated by President Reagan. Have you heard about that?
I cannot verify. That's the political side of it. I've been on the operational side of it.
Okay, well,
it could be, but I don't know anything about it.
Well, we'll be here, and we understand that will be on his last leg as he aborts the plane.
It surprised me in the least.
Okay, we'll hopefully catch a few words of what the president has to say, John. And that's all we have here from the Dothan Airport, as the president has already debarked, and he's on his way downtown.
Is that it?
All right, thank you, Mike Lewis. One question while you got John Norton there, if you can hear me.
Yes,
one quick question.
Yes, okay.
This has nothing to do with the visit or the politics, but if you could ask John Norton if there's a possibility that Air Force One could come back for the airfare next year.
John Williams wants to know if the Air Force One jet could come back for the airfare next year.
Tell John that we're working on it, that we feel that now that the Air Force One has been here, we ought to get jet service back in Dothan and have him come down here for the airfare next year, too.
You get that?
All right. Thank you very much, Mike Lewis. Air Force One on the ground, President Reagan rolling toward Dothan. We're not able to bring you point-by-point positioning and video of the president because the section of his route between here and the juncture of Highway 52 in the circle is unknown. For security reasons, naturally. They wouldn't let us know. There are several routes that he could take. We just don't know which way he's going. We do know it'll take about 10 to 15 minutes to go. And all morning, people have been preparing for the opportunity to see the president at that end of the motorcade where he could be. That's around 52, up the circle to the medical center, and then back toward the civic center. Let's take a look. Tommy Spates went out a little earlier. Let's take a look at how he saw things starting to shape up about an hour ago.
And to fill with people around 10 this morning in anticipation of the first ever visit of the nation's leader to the Wiregrass. City officials blocked off the lane and set up bleachers so that those who were unable to purchase tickets for his speech could see the president as his motorcade made its way toward the civic center. Although they will not be able to talk to the president, his motorcade will travel at a slow pace, and the president will greet the people by way of a speaker system from his limousine. Billboards and banners, as well as people with small and large American flags, will greet the president as he makes the 1-mile trip secured by Houston County deputies, Dothan Police, and Alabama State Troopers. Thousands are expected to line the street, and some began gathering before breakfast.
We stopped by Hardee's and got our breakfast in a sack and came and ate breakfast in the cemetery. There was not a soul out here then. These people had already been here at 5 o'clock. We're making history today. I want to get us a good seat because we've never seen a president before. We was excited. Well, I missed getting a ticket to the luncheon. I didn't want to miss seeing the president come by. I wanted to see him, and we couldn't watch him come in on the plane, so I decided to be here.
And some came for different reasons.
Because I like him. That's the last time.
Umbrellas were in order today, and though the temperature is expected to be in the 90s by the time the president arrives, many say the heat won't make a difference.
I'm going to stay. We can bear with it. All day, all day. I waited 3.5 hours to get tickets the other day to get it. I waited all day to see it. People walk around Disney World in the heat and they don't mind. That's right. They get up. You know, everything you do in the South is hot, so that's just part of it. They get up early and go to the pea patch, and they go and pick peas when it's hot, and so this day should be a little bit different. I think this is more important than picking peas.
By now, there should be thousands of people lined up to see the president of the...
And that's Tommy Spates, who reported earlier. Now, let's go down to the motorcade location live, where the president is passing in review, so to speak, to all the people of Dothan who've come out to see him. You can see the limousine moving now up John Murphy Boulevard, coming in toward the Civic Center. We're looking east at this point. You can see that crowd of people on the median side. Only one side was available for people to stand on, and hundreds of people, as you heard just in Tommy Spates' report, hundreds of people have been gathering all morning just for the opportunity. This is, okay, I'm told this is not his vehicle, well, but that is the advance vehicle for the president's moving along. It's kind of hard to be able to tell when you get a nose-on shot whether it's a limousine or not, but the president should be along in just a moment. Let's go back to that motorcade, and I'll try to give you the locations of where he's going to be over the next few minutes until he hits the Civic Center. He'll travel along John Murphy Boulevard, as you see right there. That's the overpass. For those of you who are watching who are not from the Dothan area, not familiar with it, that overpass, he should be coming over the top of it very soon. This particular car, and you can see all the policemen behind it, are obviously out keeping the public back away from the driving area to keep things safe and secure and organized. It'll take about 10 to 15 minutes for the president to get from the airport to this particular point. Now, as I understand, I started telling you just a moment ago, the president should be able to, or is expected to be able to make comments as he travels along this particular portion of the route. And I do understand he has a loudspeaker system in the limousine, and we will probably not be able to hear it because of the distance between the point where he is located and where our camera and our microphones are located. We have Kim Gilliland located at that particular spot, and if she is close by, we might be able to get some comments from her on what it's like down there. I know it's got to be extremely hot. As soon as I get some indication that Kim is there, we'll get some comments from her on how it feels to be standing by in that location all morning. I know she's been out there since about 8 o'clock this morning, helping getting things prepared. And Kim, could you tell us, is it really that hot?
John, the humidity and the temperatures, it's horrible. Well, of course, it's the epitome of the summer days. What do you expect in South Alabama? But the temperatures have not kept the public away. You know, spectators began showing up here this morning around 7 o'clock from what I hear, and they have been patiently waiting all of these hours. Already, some of the heat has gotten to the spectators. The rescue squad has had to make a run. But Dothan Mayor Larry Register predicted that 10,000 people would show up for today along the motorcade, and I believe those figures are going to be about accurate. Thousands of people have lined up, starting at the Skyview Drive-In and ending all the way down here at Poplar Head Park. So people are excited. They're waiting anxiously. They can't wait to see a glimpse of the president.
Well, it's a very momentous occasion, and I'm, as it looks right now, as we're looking at the boulevard area, Kim, it looks like everyone is being very orderly.
Oh, they're being extremely orderly. Of course, everybody's excited. There's no negative aspects about this at all. Everybody's just really excited. Of course, President Reagan is just a very popular president. Everybody's cooperating with the police. I believe the police from Enterprise, Dothan, and all over the Wiregrass have pitched in and come to Dothan this morning to help keep order. And so everyone, you know, nobody's yelling, nobody's complaining. They're all waiting just patiently, of course, for the president.
All right, Kim, thank you very much. We'll check back with you a little bit later on. Now, if we get a chance, let's go and take a look at the inside of the Civic Center where people are really waiting in anticipation for the president to come. He'll be sitting down to a fine Southern meal. As a matter of fact, he wanted it so down home, and the people, Betty Ellsworth, the Civic Center manager, the mayor, and all the officials involved in this particular program went so far as to put red checkered tablecloths on all the tables down in that area. And it really looks like a down-home lunch. And yet, while you're looking at the head table, the podium area where the president will be eating and later speaking, it looks like a gigantic event. And of course, for all of us in this area, it is a gigantic event. People are already lined up. You can see they have their meals. I couldn't tell if they were eating already or nibbling already. Probably so. It seems like it's taking quite a while. And of course, if you've driven from the airport down to this section of Dothan, it does take quite a while, even though all those sections of the highway are blocked off, which makes it a clear lane for the president to drive. It still takes a while, and I'm sure that Mayor Register and others in the car want to be able to point out to the president some of the fine sights of our fair city and all the progress that's going on in this area. We're mighty proud of it. Our city's on the rise, on the grow. Ever since about a year and a half ago, and I didn't particularly want to bring this up, but at this point, let me do that. About a year and a half ago, you'll remember Rand McNally rated us the 4th worst city in America. Well, we're very pleased that President Reagan did not agree with them. Obviously, he didn't, because today he's in Dothan, Alabama, and that makes us something. And we're mighty proud of that fact. We never thought of ourselves as the 4th worst. We always thought of ourselves as the best. And we don't really care what those people back then said about us. We know where we are and what we're like now. We are waiting now for the president's motorcade, his limousine, to come over the top, as you see, of John Murphy Boulevard. As soon as he does, we'll be able to go down in that area and hopefully hear some of the comments, if the president does, in fact, make some comments via a loudspeaker. The people have been lined up all morning. The security has been tremendous. Now, we have a special report on security we're going to go to a little bit later on, but we're going to hold off on that right now because he may show up at any minute. And if he does, we want to be able to see him and see that historic journey down a very special section of the highway of our city. Dothan's been preparing all week long. And really, since we had the message last week, it was about the middle of last week, the Maryland Register and Bill Ince, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce, announced that an advance team was in Dothan, and that advance team was here to set the stage for President Reagan to come visit us. You see the police car coming up the route now. He's once again making a double check to see that everything is secure, that the alley of transportation is cleared, and we should be able to see the president's motorcade. And in fact, I believe we do, coming across now. And here they come. They're coming at a pretty good clip at this point, but they will slow down and quite a bit as they pass in review to the people of the Wiregrass who are here to see their president, a president who has a 68% appeal factor, who won 2 landslide victories on his way to the White House, once in 1980, again in 84. Never any really heavy question as to whether he was going to be the victor or not in any of the 2 elections that he ran. He lost to Jimmy Carter a number of years ago, very close race. He went back to promoting Republican candidates at that time, writing columns, speaking engagements, setting the stage for the hour when he would become the president. And since becoming the president, there have been a lot of good, positive, as well as some negative comments. I told you, there's his limousine right in the middle of your screen now. You see the flags. The music already playing, the music you hear coming in from the Civic Center. The president's motorcade, there's the president, turning in now, heading toward the Civic Center. In just a few moments, he'll be leaving the limousine. We'll go inside. We'll get a chance to see the president as he enters the room, and we'll hear "Hail to the Chief." I believe it's played by the Troy State Band. fairly quick trip, as a matter of fact. It'd be hard to see all the Dothan sights in that short time from the airport to this point. You see the limousine now will drive inside the Civic Center. We don't have a camera where we could pick him up as he leaves the limousine, but we will be able to go inside and see him as he enters the main hall and the main auditorium. And you know he's going to get a tremendous round of applause when he moves into this room. These people have been waiting for over an hour and a half. They've been waiting since last week for just this event. People paid $25, $10, $15 for tickets to have lunch with the president. And I don't seriously doubt there's a soul in that room would have swapped you a ticket for anything today. You can see the band is playing. And in that back room where the blue curtains are, the president should be in there. President Reagan travels all over the world, all over the United States. And he gets the same, almost the same response everywhere he goes. Today he's going to talk about tax reform, but not until he has lunch with 2,500 people from the Dothan area. All are not from Dothan. Some are from other areas outside of Dothan. But the majority are the people of Dothan. Everybody's standing now in anticipation. Any second, the president will be in amongst them. He's wearing a light-colored suit. If you missed it when he came off the aircraft, you can see on your right Chief Stokes, Captain, Dothan City Police Department, Secret Service agents, interspersed with Dothan City policemen, Houston County deputies around. Deputies and policemen from all around the Wiregrass area are here today helping with the security. We must say they have done a magnificent job. I'm sure that the crowd, they're explaining to the crowd, they want the crowd to really stay seated for the president's arrival. That may be difficult to keep them all in their seats. He's such a popular president. And when he enters and they start playing Hail to the Chief, we're going to let you hear that in its entirety. And what a crowd of people. I'm told you couldn't get another person in the room. It's just that full. And the tickets went so quickly. People lined up 9 o'clock the night before the tickets went on sale. 12 hours before the tickets went on sale, people waiting. It was that important to them. Not everyone can say they had lunch with the president. We don't know yet what the holdup is. Maybe a few handshakes in the hallway where the president's limousine pulled into. It's right behind that curtain that you're looking at now. But any moment, you'll be able to see him come through, and you'll be able to hear him when he comes through. President Ronald Reagan, he's arrived at the Dothan Civic Center, and we are waiting in just a moment for his entry. He'll be in. He'll naturally draw a wild and tumultuous welcome. It's a monumental event for the city of Dothan, for Houston County, for the entire Wiregrass area, and it's not over. It's, a matter of fact, a long way from being over. The president will have lunch. That'll last about 25, maybe 30 minutes. And then he will make a statement on tax reform. Various people will be introducing him. I'll give you that list a bit later on. He will also, afterwards, receive some gifts from the city of Dothan. The register will make some presentations to him. And then he'll be leaving the scene and heading back to the airport and back to Washington. He flew from Washington to this event today in Dothan. It makes it extra special to us. We're not sort of on the way to something else. We are his destination for today, and I know that all of you are mighty proud of that. It's not one of those events that happen every day. It's the first time in 100 years that a president has visited the city of Dothan, so naturally we kind of like to blow our horn a little bit, don't we? We don't know, again, what the holdup is. The people are waiting. He's been in about 3 to 4 minutes now. They should be moving out and moving into the main room where the people are any second. And at that point, we'll stop commenting on the program and allow you to hear the full musical presentation, the applause, the welcome to the President, and you can add your welcome to that too. 2,500 people have lined up for this particular event to be on the inside. A lot more than that lined up to be on the hot outside. And of course, they'll still be there as the President leaves. He'll be leaving along the same route. Now, we don't know after he leaves the main drive, the John Murphy Boulevard. We don't know exactly what route he'll be taking. He may go a different way. Probably will, for that matter, for security reasons. That one section from the medical center back toward the city over the overpass, that one section has been laid out just so that people can view the President coming and going, the people who could not get tickets, the people who were not amongst the lucky 2,500. We get to have dinner with the President from long range, and we hope that you'll be able to enjoy it with us. Even though we won't be having fried chicken on the set here, we can at least have a mouth-watering look at it, can't we? And later on, he is going to talk about tax reform. We don't know what he's going to say on that particular subject. We do understand that it will be a specific statement, not a generality. It hardly would be wise to come this far for anyone and have a generality. You see the people standing up now? Here comes you see Hal Heflin, Jeremiah Denton leading him, Bill Dickinson. They just introduced them to the crowd. They are making their way along the aisle, heading up toward the head table. They will be sitting up with the President, as well as some other people up front, where they'll be having their lunch. As you can see, shaking hands when we got there was the President of the Chamber of Commerce. The band is playing. Let's listen to the band as we...
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Mr. President, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, with today's invocation, I would like to introduce the pastor of the First Baptist Church at Dothan, Dr. Bob Baggett.
Let's bow as we pray. We need thee, our Father. We need thy strength, thy guidance, thy wisdom. Continue to endow the President of these United States, Ronald Reagan, with thy wisdom and power. And remind us, the citizens of this republic, that a mighty fortress is our God, not a hiding place of escape, but an arsenal of courage and of strength. Bless this food and this time of togetherness. Amen.
Mr. President, honored guests, and ladies and gentlemen, please now dig in and enjoy your down home Dothan lunch. Thank you.
And you just heard the Reverend Robert Baggett delivering the invocation, and we'll be back. We'll join the President of the Civic Center in just a moment.
Have you seen our Thomasville American Summer Sale tabloid? If not, be sure to come in and see the exciting values.
Adventurous Fine Furniture save up to $200 on these American country tables. This collector's cherry dining group is at 40% off. Save 35% on this entire homecoming bedroom set. Adventurous Fine Furniture, all Thomasville furniture, is up to 40% off.
Get this $30 Better Homes and Gardens new decorating book for $14.95 just for coming in during our Thomasville Summer Sale. Hurry!
The Tri-States. Around here, when the day is done and the warm afternoons turn to dusk, the kids come home, and it's time to settle in for the best news of all. Fair, accurate, objective. That's the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. And at 6, Channel 4's John Williams, Al Roberts, and Tony Scott. Together, we keep the Tri-States on top of the world. To Ellen Bloom, who struggled with her inflexible Afghan to cover her worn-out sofa. To Bob Tucker, who used a 5-foot fern to cover the scratches on his dining room table. There's no reason to cover up anymore. Ethan Allen is having a summer sale on beautiful furniture and accessories for every room in your home. So get moving to Ethan Allen's summer sale. There's no reason to cover up anymore.
Don't even think about it.
Village Carriage House, an Ethan Allen gallery. 4 full-time decorators with free home decorating service. We make house calls.
Nichols and Enterprise leads the way again. Last year, Nichols started his model cleanup sale early, and it was sensational. Imagine that great inventory, Oldsmobiles, Pontiacs, and Buicks, and late-season clearance prices. It's unheard of, but Nichols is the leader. So Nichols rolls sale time backwards and prices down, offering you a dazzling selection and 3 great lines to choose from. Take the family, let them meet Nichols' friendly people, and drive away in a new Oldsmobile, Pontiac, or Buick. Nichols is one of the South's finest dealerships. WTVY, Channel 4, Dothan, Alabama.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a presidential visit to the city of Dothan. We're glad to have you with us. We're very glad to have President Ronald Reagan with us. Right now, let's go down to the Civic Center. The president is having lunch. We get a chance to see all the people getting ready to have a nice, good down home, as the president requested, fried chicken meal. You see, to the president's right is Senator Jeremiah Denton, and to his left is Miss Louise Kramer. She is a retired principal from the Dothan City School System, and she is having dinner with the president today. To her left is Congressman Bill Dickinson, and to the right of Jeremiah Denton is Bill Entz, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce. You see, to the left of Bill Dickinson, the wife of Mary Larry Register, and other people around the head table. We can only see the backs of their heads. We can't identify all of them. But as you can see, a nice crowd of people. The president surrounded by down-home folks, people he likes the best, the people that he responds to so well, and those people who have really gone out over the years and supported this man and the many, many programs, even though some of the programs have not been ones that have been popular. Farmers have been unhappy. People now, as the Senate and the House discussing tax reform, they made a lot of people unhappy, a lot of people concerned about what's going to happen. Everyone knew tax reform was coming, but no one knew that it was going to come this swiftly when it got to rolling. And we'll talk about that tax reform package and what the president may be saying about it in just a moment. But right now, I was telling you about his dinner. And we have a special report from Kim Gitterland on how this meal was prepared, how it was selected. So let's go check with Kim on that.
While city officials were busy preparing Dothan for the visit, cooks here at Morrison's were busy preparing the presidential meal. A lot more than just stirring and frying went into cooking this meal. Special chefs from Washington had to approve the preparation of the lunch.
We've got from Washington 3 chef stewards that come down, and they strictly monitor all the food that's being prepared for any of the presidential functions that concern food.
And what do you serve the president? Well, whatever type of food he wants. And according to White House officials, the president specifically asked for some down-home Southern cooking.
That's Washington's idea.
Did they call you and...
They called and requested, they didn't ask for a menu plan or anything. They just wanted a family-style, Southern-type cooking, and they gave me the menu plan, and then I had to go with it.
Chicken, butter beans, mashed potatoes and gravy, peach cobbler, and rolls made up the menu. It took a lot of preparation for the meal, and it took a lot of groceries. 850 chickens, 770 pounds of potatoes, and 177 dozen rolls were cooked to feed the president, city officials, and spectators at the Civic Center. Food preparation actually began on Wednesday, but the real cooking started this morning around 2 a.m. Cooks were brought in from Morrison's in Georgia and all over the state of Alabama. Nathaniel McRae has been with Morrison's for 40 years and says this is the highest official he's ever cooked for.
Well, I feel like that's like the other meal to cooking the president and time being is to make me feel good. That I can cook for the president.
So after you cook for the president, what's next?
There's nobody else higher, right? There's one person higher, but we can't feed him. So I don't know what we're going to do after this. There won't be much more to improve on.
Kim Gilliland, TV4 News.
Thank you very much, Kim. She prepared that report a little earlier for you, and you saw what the fun is going to be, or is for all those people down at the Civic Center having dinner with the president. And here at the studio, my guest throughout this program, we haven't heard anything from him yet, but we're about to. My guest is Wally Hinesley, and Wally is a tax attorney, and he's an expert in tax, and he's considered this tax reform package quite a bit. And what do you think about everything so far that you've seen?
Well, we've got several proposals that are before us. President Reagan had initially kicked off his tax package about a year ago. It's been now. And since that period of time, the House initiated, as it's required by the Constitution to do, initiated a tax package, and it was passed at the end of 1985. So we've actually had House Bill 3838 for since December, and since that period of time, the Senate Finance Committee has begun preparation of the Senate version of the tax bill. And that has recently passed, as recently as June 24th, that bill passed. So now what has to happen at this point is that the two bills must go to a joint House and Senate conference committee. And from that point in time, and as you know, the Congress is adjourned right now in recess, but they are scheduled to get back together July 14th. Somewhere between July 14th and August 16th, we're expecting that the bill will reach its final form, where it must, once a joint committee passes upon that, the President has indicated that he would like the bill prior to October 3rd, and I think the next recess after August 16th is scheduled, Congress is scheduled to reconvene around September 8th. So I would expect that the President will have the bill in early fall. As far as the differences between the two bills, initially, Ross Kowski, who is chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, his bill was taken through, and there were a lot of special interest changes to the House bill, but I think it's generally viewed that the House bill is more restrictive across the board than the Senate version of the bill. But the Senate version of the bill has also had some changes that President Reagan had indicated that he wanted no amendments to the bill, to the Senate version of the bill, after it came out of the Senate Finance Committee. There were some amendments offered. One of them, Senator Metzenbaum and Senator Howell Heflin instigated an amendment so that income averaging for farmers would be allowed for certain qualified farmers. That's one amendment that this area
would benefit this area and is important to us locally. But there are many, many differences between the two versions of the bill, which I think we'll probably get into a little bit later. But as far as the overall tax package, I think a year ago the tax bill was introduced with so much fanfare that people expected a fairly quick bill. But this is the most comprehensive change in the tax law since 1954. And I don't anticipate that this bill will receive any less attention than the three prior bills received. It's unusual that President Reagan was able to get through as much tax legislation as he has. Normally, a president over an 8-year span gets 1 to 2 pieces of major tax legislation passed. And in his 6-year tenure, assuming that this bill does pass in some form, this is the 4th major bill that we've had. We had the 1981 Economic Recovery Tax Act, the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 82, and the Tax Act of 1984, which was part of the Deficit Reduction Act. So I think that if this bill passes, we're going to see the most comprehensive changes that we've seen. I think it's a bill that, although the other changes were important, this is geared more to individuals because we'll see the marginal tax rate be severely adjusted from, for instance, on joint and married individuals that file a joint return. We currently have 14 different marginal tax brackets, and that would be substantially reduced on the House version to 4 different brackets, beginning at 15%, escalating to 25%, 35%, and finally the maximum rate of 38%. The President had indicated that he wanted 3 marginal rates to be capped at 35%, and in that regard, he has not agreed to date with the Senate finance changes, which have given us only two marginal rates, which would be 15% and a maximum of 27%. And looking at it at first blush, it looks good from the individual income tax standpoint when you look and you see that the maximum rate has been reduced or would be reduced from 50% to 27%. But the trade-off is that we are losing a great many business deductions. We're losing investment tax credit and certain other things that we'll talk about.
All right. Thank you very much, Wally. We have John Michael standing by live at the Civic Center. John, can you hear me?
Yes, John, I can hear you fine.
Tell us, I can't hear you very well, but tell us what you think what it's like being down on the floor working today.
Well, if you want just an honest first impression, John, I'll have to say that if I look this way, about 70 feet right there is Ronald Reagan. I can see him. I know he's there, but it's still kind of hard to believe that he's really sitting over there eating a piece of fried chicken in the Dothan Civic Center. But it's true. And I think everybody here really kind of feels the same way. They know he's here, but it's still, the surprise of it or the first effect hasn't worn off yet. I think it'll be a little more real once he gets up and starts speaking. But there he is right there. So what can you say?
John, whenever the President came through the door, from our vantage point, it almost looked like the crowd was electrified. And I know they've been trying to keep the crowd controlled, telling them, stay in your seats, don't stand up, don't move around, keep it organized. But you just knew when he came through they had to get up, didn't they?
Well, everyone was up. Of course, a lot of people in the crowd have cameras. You saw people of all sorts climbing into their chairs, almost standing in the food, trying to get a shot over somebody's head to be able to see the President as he came in. Of course, it was rather difficult for us sitting on the floor to see him very well because of all the crowd. The cameras had a much better angle at that than we did. But just knowing that he was in the room, and of course I was sitting next to a monitor here and I could see him much better than most people in the room could through the camera, it was just a feeling that you don't experience very often. Electrifying, as you said, would probably be an adequate way to describe it.
I understand you are having some difficulty getting some of the people from the head table, Congressman Dickinson, Jeremiah Denton, and others to come down and talk with you. Do you anticipate being able to do that anytime over the next 15 to 20 minutes before the president makes his speech?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty about that, John. We just really don't know. As you have mentioned several times previously, the security is extremely tight, and the people who are seated around the president at his table, of course, were selected. The mayor is there, and Denton, Heflin, and Dickinson, as you've mentioned, all the people who are there were chosen to be there, and no one else is allowed around. We're not allowed to go up and request that Congressman Dickinson or Senator Denton or anyone else come back for an interview. We've tried to get word to them previously to come back and talk to us, but we're not sure if they will or not. We just really don't know. We're trying to work with the Secret Service to work it out, to get them to deliver a message for us, and one time you think they will, and another time you think they won't. So we just really don't know, but there are a few people within arm's length of us here that perhaps we can talk to if we need to.
Let me ask you this, John Michael. You have, as I understand, most of the reporters down there have been able to see an advanced copy of the president's speech. And without giving away the strength of the speech, did you see anything in there that you felt was really of a real specific nature, something that may be a bombshell type comment?
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that, because they passed out the speeches and they stopped right before they got to me, so I haven't seen one. I'm right on the end of the row here. Stacy Reimer is sitting here looking at one now. I thought was. Maybe we had one a second ago, but I've not seen it yet, so I really don't know. But I'm being handed one, but of course I haven't read it, so I don't know what's in here, but here it is. Maybe we can let you know something about its content just a little bit later. We have heard some reports prior to now that he might have something very significant to say, but those were just rumors type reports, so I don't really know, and until I have a moment to sit down and look at this, I really can't tell you.
Have you talked to anyone, John Michael, who would have given up their ticket?
Well, there was a few people yesterday who were willing to sell their tickets for very high prices. I heard this morning of some people who paid $300 for a ticket to get in this. That's, I think, a little outrageous that someone would sell a ticket for that price, but of the people who are in the building today, I don't think there's anybody inside the Civic Center who would sell their ticket right now for any price to have to leave before the president gets up and speak and let someone else have their ticket. I just don't think that will happen with anyone.
I think it's safe to say that there are scalpers no matter what the game is, and today Ronald Reagan is our game.
That's exactly true, John, and I think it's unfortunate that some people that were able to get tickets, whether they stood in line or however they got them, it's unfortunate that they used that opportunity to try to make money off of it. I think that's sad, but it's also sad that there were so many thousands of people who got in here. There's so few who got in and so many thousands who wanted to get in. It just wasn't possible. It may be a good argument why Dothan needs a new civic center that seats a lot more people. But with only 2,300 people allowed in this facility with this type seating, there was another 40 or 50,000 who would have liked to have been here and could not. It just wasn't possible. So there are a lot of disappointed people. And I don't want to imply that there was a lot of scalping going on by what I was saying a moment ago, but there's always a little bit of that, but very little.
This has been tabbed, John, as a non-political visit. And of course, the president being a very popular Republican president, it'd be hard to hide the political overtones or undertones, as however it may be stated. But now, have you seen today a lot of the candidates there? Have you seen Guy Hunt, who is a GOP candidate for governor of Alabama?
I have not seen Guy Hunt, John. I don't know if he's here or not. There were some reports that he might be coming, but I've not seen him, so I can't verify that he's here. Many of the local candidates are here, Republican candidates as well as Democratic candidates. This is certainly by no means a Republican gathering here. This is just a gathering of folks from the Dothan Wiregrass area who support Ronald Reagan and wanted to be here with the president. It really has nothing to do with whether you're Republican or Democrat. There are a lot of local candidates who are here, though, but Guy Hunt in particular, I have not seen him in the crowd, and I've not received confirmation that he's here.
It would be hard, John, for a Republican to miss this opportunity, and sitting very wide open, I guess is the best way I can think of at the moment, is Jeremiah Denton, who is in a very tough race, many say, with Democrat Richard Shelby for the U.S. Senate seat in Alabama. It's a capital opportunity for him in particular, in this particular race, that he's having to run this fall.
Well, they're talking about politicians being here. Of course, Denton and Heflin and Dickinson were here at the White House request, their invitation. As far as state and local politicians, there were statements made prior to today that they were very careful not to get involved in politics. Candidates were not invited simply because they were running, be it Republican Party or any other party. Most of the candidates who were up for election, if they came, it's because they stood in line or managed to get tickets. It's not because they had any special invitation to be here.
Well, it must be exciting down on the floor, and I envy you, for one, for being there. I wish I could be there with you, too. And we're going to leave you for a moment. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back at the Dothan Civic Center for more coverage of our presidential visit in just a moment.
This is a business bulletin. Savers Furniture Enterprise, Alabama is selling out to a major chain. Now, Savers Furniture Enterprise has been ordered to sell out their entire stock of Better Brand furniture and bedding at once to clear the building. A total liquidation. Everything must go immediately. Savers Furniture is selling out to a major chain and has a limited time to sell out and get out. Every piece of furniture at absolute sacrifice on Fort Rucker Boulevard, Enterprise. Open 7 days a week until the building is empty.
Tri-State Toyota Truck Center is overstocked with over 100 trucks and vans. Hi, I'm Jim Lally. We have 60 more vehicles at Port in Jacksonville and need to sell our present inventory at some price. We have all models and all option selections. Our prices start at just $62.98, and for a limited time receive a bedliner or toolkit with the purchase of any new Toyota truck. Tri-State Toyota Truck Center between the malls in Dothan.
WTVY, Channel 4, Dothan, Alabama.
And welcome back, everyone, to a presidential visit to Dothan, an exciting day in our fair city, and we're mighty proud to have Ronald Reagan here with us. He came in earlier this morning at about 11:35, 11:40, flew in on Air Force One, arrived at the Dothan Airport, took a motorcade trip from the airport. We don't know what that particular route was. Took him about 15, 18 minutes to get into the city of Dothan and pass in review on John Murphy Boulevard on up to the Civic Center. He's in the Civic Center now having lunch. He'll be up and giving a speech very shortly. We know it's going to be about 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the outside before he gets up to talk about tax reform. The president's here. There are a lot of things that have to be prepared for, and there's one contention that we hope never happens again. That is preparations for any hospital or medical needs that the president may have. But those preparations have been made just in case. And Stacy Reimer took a look at how the Southeast Alabama Medical Center is preparing for any sort of circumstance.
In case there's a medical emergency during President Reagan's stay in Dothan, Southeast Alabama Medical Center has been designated as the hospital which will provide care for the president. Medical Center Administrator Jim Blackman says a simple phone call from Washington, D.C. initiated a great deal of hard but enjoyable work.
It started Monday morning with a call from the White House saying that this hospital had been selected as the president's choice to provide medical backup in case of need. A lot of events have been set into motion since that time. We've had the Secret Service in checking every aspect of this building from top to bottom. They know where all the entrances and exits are. They know everything about this facility, and it's been really exciting for the staff here to be involved in that and to know what's going on and what takes place when the president visits a city such as Dothan.
For the past week, Medical Center employees and the Secret Service have been working hand in hand preparing for the possible needs of the president. While most of the hospital's inner workings are confidential, Public Relations Coordinator Cheryl Lewis says everything from a private room to an installed White House phone is in working order.
There will be an extra physician on duty in the emergency room during the time that the president is here.
One thing that's been interesting about the week is all the communication that has been set up. We do have a White House phone in the emergency room. Some special lines of communication have been set up. We do have a special area that is designated where the president would be if he needed these facilities.
The hospital administrator notes the medical center was chosen by the White House staff since it houses the Wiregrass area's designated trauma center.
Both Blackman and Lewis are hoping their services will not be needed during President Reagan's visit. However, they are prepared in case an emergency does arise. Stacey Weimer, TV4 News.
Thank you very much, Stacey Weimer. A report she prepared earlier on the preparations just in case any sort of medical needs may come up during the president's visit. You're looking now at the Civic Center. The president's way up front now. There he is. Having dinner. Just to his left is Ms. Louise Kramer. She's a retired principal in the Dothan City School System. She has the honor of having lunch with President Ronald Reagan. To his right is Jeremiah Denton, and to Mrs. Kramer's left is Bill Dickinson. Lots of other people at the head table that, due to the crowd, we're unable to see and identify all of them. There's Bill Entz in the top left-hand side of your screen. I told you earlier I wanted to read a portion, and as you look at the man of the hour, Ronald Reagan, I want to read to you a paragraph written in the current issue of Time magazine, which pretty much sums up this man. It says, Ronald Reagan has found the American sweet spot. The white ball sails into the sparkling air at a high parabola and vanishes over the fence again. The 75-year-old man is hitting home runs, winning a lopsided vote on a tax reform plan that others had airily dismissed. He grins his boyish grin and bobs his head in the way he has and trots around the bases. Ronald Reagan is a winner. That's in the current issue of Time magazine. Very apropos for this particular man. He travels everywhere, as I said earlier, and he gets tremendous responses. A lot of people say it's because he's the great communicator, maybe the greatest communicator ever been in the White House. Truly a man who takes his victories, bobs his head, and smiles and moves on. He takes his losses almost the same way. He does occasionally get a little angry, as we've heard on some of the comments where they picked up some of his statements off camera, off microphone, and he has not lost audiences and for those statements. Sometimes he seems more human than before. Now we're looking down on the Civic Center floor again. The president is having dinner in Dothan, Alabama. Stacey Weimer is standing by. Stacey?
Well, here I am with John Conte, who in 1921 arrived in Ellis Island and saw the Statue of Liberty. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And that was a wonderful feeling, I know.
It's a great feeling, and then Ellis Island was not as great a feeling because we stayed there 5 days, and every day we worried more whether we were going to be sent by. But finally, at the end of the 5th day, we were allowed to come into the state.
Well, now you're here in Dothan, Alabama, and you're getting a look at President Reagan eating chicken in the Civic Center.
It's great. It's really wonderful, and how instead of having a head table, he sits right down with the people and makes a great politician, I think.
When you came over here in 1921, did you ever expect that this day might happen?
Not really, but it has been, after we had arrived to this country, after we'd been here for a while, then we realized what a great country this was. And my dad used to tell us that after we'd stay here 5 or 6 years, then we'll all go back. So I told him, I said, you can, but I'm not.
Well,
you never did.
On Friday, on July 4th, did you have to sit out in the hot sun waiting to get your ticket?
No, I was lucky.
You were lucky.
I was lucky. I didn't have to get in line.
Well, lucky you. That's the truth. And here you are today on the floor eating chicken with the president.
And I love chicken, too.
Well, that's great. And once again, this is John Conte, who in 1921 arrived in the United States from Italy, and today...
And I was 11 and a half years old.
11 and a half. And now he's here at the Civic Center with the President of the United States.
Thank you very much, Stacey. And a success story. And that goes back to the president having his shining hour on July 4th, whenever he threw the switch and he got the Statue of Liberty lit up. A beautiful night, a beautiful sight, just incredible. And another one of those, as Time magazine said, I hate to hark back to them, but a fine article, another one of those Yankee Doodle magic hours for President Ronald Reagan. John Michael is down on the floor too with Stacey Reimer. And John, we're going to, I know he has prepared a special report. Before we get a chance to go back to him, he prepared a report on how Ronald Reagan came to Dothan. What brought this along? So let's check with him.
Even after a week of daily news briefings, it was still hard for it to soak in that the President of the United States was really coming to Dothan. It was Chamber of Commerce Chairman Bill Ince who issued the invitation, an idea which he admits came out of thin air.
We at the Chamber have various brainstorming sessions, and Dale Hubbard and I often talk about a lot of ways that we can do to advance Dothan, Houston County area from an economic standpoint. We got chatting one day and remembered that the President had visited a small town in Indiana, I believe it was Morristown if I recall, and we thought, well, maybe we've got a shot at something like that. There's nothing to lose anyway, so I went ahead and sent a letter out to the President. It was very short. We just told him that we would like to invite him to come visit our area, that we had a good, solid industry here. The climate was good. We have a good agricultural base. We have a regional markets.
All right. Thank you very much, John Michael. The President came to Dothan, it seems almost easily. And someone made the statement to me earlier, if it's that easy, why hadn't we asked him before? Maybe sometimes the finer things of life are just as easy as asking for them. And we're glad to have him here. And looking back at the Civic Center, we can see some of this activity. We're about to have, I know that on the schedule is a song by Mike Everett. He's going to sing Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA.
Things were gone that I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again, just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. I won't forget it, the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and remember still. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to L.A. There's pride in every American heart, the time to stand and say, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up
That was Mike Everett, the son of a former mayor in Kenny Everett. And Mike Everett was singing a Lee Greenwood song called God Bless the USA. And now, we should have Bill Ants, who will make a few statements. He is the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he'll be introducing Jeremiah Denton, and the senator will be making a few statements.
Mr. President, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, at this time I would like to introduce the chairman of the board of the Dothan Houston County Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Bill Ents. Bill?
Mr. President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Dothan Houston County Chamber of Commerce, it is my distinct pleasure to extend a hearty welcome to one and all. Those of you from outside of our area, we hope you enjoy your stay, and if possible, get the opportunity to return to see us again in the near future. Now, while you're here, you may want to participate in an extended effort that we have going on in economic development. All you have to do is see any of our merchants. They're easy to get along with. They'll take cash or credit cards. In our chamber functions normally are breakfast meetings, but seeing that we can draw such a large crowd at lunch, I think I'm going to start changing them to luncheon meetings. I would be remiss if I didn't take just a second to say thank you for all the workers who have participated in this past week, and particularly the hundreds of volunteers who have made this be the successful event it is. And we thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. It is now my distinct honor and privilege to introduce and present to you Senator Jeremiah Denton. Senator Denton.
Well, this is the peanut capital of the world. This is the wiregrass region. But most of all today, this is Reagan country. On two previous occasions, Mr. President, this part of our great state, the people here have shown just how much they love Ronald Reagan. And you can see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears how true that still is today. All Alabamians know that Ronald Reagan is a great president. All Alabama knows that Ronald Reagan is good for Alabama and good for America. People all over our state, all of our delegation, represented here by my senior, Senator Heflin, Congressman Bill Dickinson, all of our delegation agree with our people and with you, Mr. President, in the overriding importance of our national security. We support your tireless efforts to rebuild and to strengthen our national defenses so that America can remain free and can continue to defend freedom throughout the world. I've been here for the last 10 days or so and participated in so many 4th of July celebrations and in celebrations commemorating the restoration of that lady in New York Harbor and her 100th year. And sir, I can tell you that at every one of those, we in Alabama, as I'm sure in all of the other states, referred to the fact that America is back and standing proud once again. And here in Alabama,
We ask God to bless you for that. One feat of inspirational leadership after another, now against seemingly unsurmountable resistance as a result of his own Herculean efforts, his goal of reduced, more fair, greatly simplified taxes will in all probability become a matter of reality in just a few days. Mr. President, we're all delighted that you're here in Dothan at the invitation of Chairman Bill Ince of the Dothan Houston County Chamber of Commerce to talk to us today about a system that will be better for the working men and women of Alabama, a better system for all of America. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friends, it is the highest honor and privilege to present to you the President of the United States. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. And Jeremiah, thank you very much for those very generous words. Mayor Register, Chairman Ince, and all of you. I just can't tell you how, from getting off the plane on, what this has meant. I've always wondered why Genesis says, let us go to Dothan. With such a welcome, I'm getting the idea. And permit me to thank all those who helped to prepare these lunches. There's one thing better than Southern hospitality, it's Southern cooking. I see you agree. You're going to have to forgive me, though, but all that fried chicken put me in mind of a story. Lots of things put me in mind of a story at every opportunity. Now, I've told this one, maybe you've heard me tell this one before, but if so, just forgive me. Remember that when you pass 40, the tendency grows to tell stories over and over again. This happens to be about a fellow that was driving down the highway and happened to glance out and notice that running alongside of him, keeping pace with the automobile, was a chicken. And he couldn't believe it. So he stepped it up a little bit, and the chicken stepped it up a little bit. Finally, he pushed the gas down, and then the chicken just stretched out his neck and left him behind, crossed the road, and went down a lane. He slammed on the brakes, turned, and went down that lane. His curiosity had to be answered. And he pulled up in a barnyard, and there was a farmer standing there. And he said, did you see a chicken go by here? And the farmer says, yeah, it's one of mine. Well, he said, am I crazy, or... It seemed to me that chicken had 3 legs. He says, yep, I breed them and raise them that way. Well, why? Well, he said, more like the drumstick, and I like the drumstick, and then along comes Junior, and he liked the drumstick, and we got tired of fighting over it. So I raised them with 3 legs. And the fellow, for want of something to say, said, well, how do they taste? He says, we don't know. We haven't been able to catch one yet. But it is an honor to be here today, and I did come down on very serious business to tell you about an historic issue in Washington and to ask for your help. But first, I have to thank 3 Alabama gentlemen who are already rendering able assistance. First, an outstanding congressman and a ranking Republican in the House Armed Services Committee, Bill Dickinson. Stand up. No member of the House has done more in rebuilding our nation's defenses than you have, Bill. And I have asked you to stand up, and I think they've all shown you their appreciation. Next, there's a fine member of the United States Senate, a young fellow named Howell Heflin. Now, I know that Howell's a Democrat, and I want to thank you for showing that on issues like tax reform and defense, there's no such thing as good politicians, just good Americans. Howell, will you stand up? Howell knows I used to be a Democrat myself. Well, then there is someone who's already been up here, Senator Jeremiah Denton. Jeremiah and I have shared many a platform, and I just have to tell you, it always does something to stand here with a hero. Nancy and I were back in Sacramento the day a plane brought you back from those nearly 8 years of torture in a North Vietnam prison camp. And like millions of Americans, we watched that homecoming, that moment on television. And we'll never forget, as many Americans won't, you walking to that microphone and then saying those 3 simple words that said it all. God bless America. For bravery, for keeping faith, for love of country, I think you've just heard. We all thank you. Now that you're in the Senate, I want all the good people here in Dothan to know that courage and patriotism continue to distinguish all that you do. Indeed, in the years since we were both first elected, you've become one of the most persuasive leaders in Capitol Hill and an effective spokesman for the great state of Alabama. You've led the way in rebuilding America's defenses, spoken out for godliness and decency in our national life, and stood up again and again for freedom around the world. And this is a good place for me to express my gratitude and to say that as far as I'm concerned, with Howell Heflin, Jeremiah Denton in the Senate, the people have good reason to be proud. All right, friends, I told you that we had important business to discuss, but permit just one more digression. Something I have to tell you because I came from part of the heartland of America myself. I want you all to know what a pleasure it is, and it was, to board Air Force One, watch Washington slip away into the distance, and then head south over the Great Smokies of North Carolina and Tennessee, over the red clay of Georgia, south to come at last to the wiregrass country of Alabama and the good city of Dothan. It reminded me how important it is for a president to put some distance between himself and Washington every so often, to leave the special interest and the lobbyists behind and get out among the people. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Dothan has given me a gift today, the gift of returning to the real America, and for that, I thank you. And now let's get down to straight talk. There's an important issue up in Washington that's about to be decided, and as I said before, I'm here today because I need your help, and that issue is tax reform. Big government and the special interest are on one side, and you and I are on the other. It's been that way since the start. And since it's a good old-fashioned, down-home 6-year scrap with the special interest we're talking about, well,
We'll get at it. The first round in this battle took place when I ran for office in 1980. Back then, the American economy was in the worst mess since the Depression. Government was everywhere, running up taxes, causing inflation, raising interest rates, and taking bigger and bigger shares of our earnings. And to get big government off our backs and out of our pockets during the campaign of 1980, I proposed a tax cut. The special interests, all those whose way of life depended upon keeping government fat and wasteful, said no. The people knew better. When they went to the ballot boxes, they said yes. But when we took office in 1981, we enacted an across-the-board personal income tax cut of nearly 25%. We also indexed tax brackets, making it impossible for inflation to push you into higher tax brackets as it had been doing for the many years that inflation was running rampant. And again, the special interests said no, claiming our plan would lead to economic ruin. And then all the opponents of the plan called it Reaganomics. And again, the people said yes. And what's happened? Inflation and interest rates have dropped. Inflation alone has fallen from over 12% to under 2% for the last 12 months, and actually has been less than zero for the last few months. We've seen 3.5. We've seen 3.5 years of economic growth and the creation of more than 10 million new jobs. More new jobs than Western Europe and Japan put together have created in the past 10 years. And thanks in large measure to our decontrol of oil, energy prices have fallen, including the price that you pay for gas. Isn't it good to pull up the station today and watch the gallons on the pump add up faster than the dollars? Of course, after all these things happened, they stopped calling it Reaganomics. I'm aware of that. You know, I have to interject something here. I come honestly by my feeling about taxes. As governor of California, I inherited a situation with a great deficit and some problems, and we had to turn to taxes because under the Constitution there you can't come to the end of the fiscal year with a deficit. Such should happen to the federal government. But But I promised the people, because you come into office there in the middle of the fiscal year, so I only had 6 months to clean things up, and therefore we had to turn to taxes. Well, very shortly, my finance director came to me and said, we're going to have a surplus this year. And since you haven't been able to do some of the things you might have wanted to do because of the situation, maybe there's a program that you'd like to propose to use up this money. And I said, I do have one in mind. Let's give it back. And he said, it's never been done. I said, well, you never had an actor up here before either. Well, we gave it back. But I just wanted to tell you, I'm prepared also for the kind of opposition we're getting to this tax reform now. Because a very prominent member of the government came in to see me. He stalked into my office, and he declared, giving that money back is an unnecessary expenditure of public funds. Well, I think we ought to all try to remember where government's money comes from in the first place. The last stage of the tax reform fight began more than a year ago when we proposed our new reform, one that would simplify the entire tax system, eliminate loopholes and tax shelters, lower most Americans' tax rates even further, and make the whole system more fair. Some claimed the American people didn't care about tax reform anymore, but that's not what I found when I took our tax reform campaign to places like Athens, Tennessee, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and Harry Truman's hometown of Independence, Missouri. And that's not what I'm finding here today in Dothan, Alabama. Our proposal went first to the House. The special interest tried to kill it. And when they couldn't do that, they tried to wound it. And when they couldn't do that, They said it was bad for the country. But in the end, their fancy briefing papers and expense account lunches were no match for the will of the people. The House, under the leadership of Dan Rostenkowski, passed a version of our proposal. Not completely to our liking, but nevertheless one that kept tax reform moving. Special interest 0, America 1. Next, tax reform went to the Senate. And again, the special interest fought it. And they did a pretty good job. And I have to admit there were moments when even I had to wonder. But a bipartisan coalition of senators that included President Company and the Finance Committee Chairman Packwood and Senators Long and Chafee and Danforth and Wallop and Moynihan and Bradley had the courage to lead a return to true reform. And led by Majority Leader Bob Dole, the Senate passed tax reform by the historic margin of 97-3. Soon after, a headline in the Washington Post read, "The impossible became inevitable." Special interest 0, America 2. And now, as Jeremiah and Howell will tell you, the version of tax reform approved by the Senate deserves special attention for the simple reason that it's especially good. Not good for Washington lobbyists or special interests, but good for you. Listen for a moment to a few of the facts. The tax reform bill the Senate approved would eliminate the complicated system of 14 tax brackets and replace it with just 2 at 15 and 27%. Now, sometimes you may be confused because you've heard it referred to as 15 tax brackets and that this reform would have 3. Well, in one way that's true if you count 0. 0 and 15 and 27. And under this new and simpler tax, the average tax burden on individuals would be cut by some 6.4%. Over 6% less a year, that works out to some $215 in savings for the average taxpayer. The Senate-approved plan represents an improvement over current law for agriculture, too. It will provide more equal tax treatment for income earned in various kinds of farm activities. And it will sharply limit opportunities for people who make their money someplace else to take advantage of real farmers by using agriculture as a tax dodge. Isn't it time that we gave farming back to the farmers? And overall, it's estimated that under the Senate-approved tax reform bill, some 2/3 of all individual taxpayers will either get an income tax cut or remain off the tax rolls completely. Corporate tax brackets would be straightened out, and the top corporate rate brought down to 33%. So the playing field for business would be made more level and fair. And tax reform would represent perhaps the biggest anti-poverty program in our history, taking some 6 million Americans off the tax rolls and enabling a family of 4 making $15,000 or less to pay no federal income taxes whatsoever. None. That's that 0 bracket. Now, as I've told you, when the special interests up in Washington hear all this good news, they say no. The American people, my friends, the people say yes and hot darn. You realize I'm only allowed to say darn. But you know what I mean. Now there's just one more round left in the fight. Just one more chance for the special interest to score before we make it an even 3-0 and declare America the winner. That chance will be in the conference committee, where members of the House and Senate must meet to iron out the differences between the bills that each chamber has passed. And before the special interests start in, and the members of the conference, and indeed could begin meeting as early as this coming week, let me state for you in the record some of the elements that I believe any final compromise must contain. Believe me, after coming through so many rounds, beginning all the way back in 1980, I'm not about to let up now. First, any bill agreed upon in Congress must hold the tax rates down. There's no doubt about it. Lowering rates for both individuals and corporations represents the most important aspect of tax reform. It encourages growth,
It allows simplification, and it promotes fairness. Let there be any significant departure from the too low individual rates of 15 and 27% and the top corporate rate of 33% that the Senate has already approved, and somebody's going to have to do a lot of explaining. Next, I urge the conference to retain provisions that would remove those 6 million lower-income Americans from the federal tax rolls, income tax rolls altogether. There's no reason to force the working poor, people who are already struggling, to turn over a share of their earnings to the government. And to help families and individuals alike, I hope to see the conference increase the personal exemption to $2,000 except for the very richest taxpayers. This is vital. It's also important for the conference to preserve the taxpayers' ability to invest in IRAs, especially for taxpayers who don't participate in a pension plan, then reap the benefits of tax-deferred growth. For American business, I hope to see the conference provide incentives for capital formation, incentives to foster truly productive investment. At the same time, the final bill must not hit the distressed sectors of our economy, sectors like farming and energy. Americans in these fields already have tough enough times as a result of forces beyond their control. And finally, I urge the conference to retain as an overriding goal the replacement of an inequitable tax system with one that's truly fair. Tax dodges have been going on long enough. The conference must grasp this opportunity to eliminate tax dodges and impose a minimum tax so that people and corporations who should pay do pay. And what it comes down to in unvarnished language is this. Any bill I sign is going to have to promote strong economic growth with more jobs and incentives for all, promote productivity, investment, and international competitiveness in American business, and help the middle class, giving those people who get up and go to work in the morning and who support their churches and charities in the community and make this system work, give them a tax cut by making those who have found ways to avoid most or all of their taxes now pay their fair share. You know, my friends, in the past 5.5 years, the people have defeated the special interests again and again. We've gone from a tax system that smothered initiatives to one that has provided new incentives for hard work, investment, and growth. From an economy that was creating virtually no new jobs to one that's creating about 250,000 new jobs a month. From a sense of malaise and powerlessness to a sense of confidence in our nation, ourselves, and our future. And today, we have the opportunity to carry this peaceful revolution through to its conclusion, to lower taxes still further for most individuals, to help American business, and to make our tax code fairer and simpler for all. We have the opportunity, in other words, to reassert for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren what is perhaps the fundamental principle of American life, that here government is the servant, not the master. That here it is government that acts at the convenience of the people. Last weekend, the 4th of July, meant a great deal to me, and I know to all of us. For love of liberty, I said in New York Harbor, our forebears fought a war for independence. For love of liberty, those who came before us tamed a vast wilderness. For love of liberty, Americans championed and still champion the cause of human freedom in far-off lands. Tax reform may at first seem less dramatic, less inspiring than the battle for independence or the settling of our continent. But in truth, it belongs on the same plane as those great efforts, for it involves nothing less than the reassertion of the will of the people. The reassertion, as I've said, of the people's interest against the special interest. And my friends, for love of liberty,
We must see it accomplished. Can I count on your help? Now, I've just mentioned simplifying the tax code a couple of times, but I can't quit without just giving you a little example. We all know when we sit down there before April 15th what we're up against. Lately, I've had to have somebody else make out my tax bill, and you know something? Even after it's made out, I can't understand it. The whole income tax started in the Constitution with 16 words in the amendment. Now it takes a 57-foot long shelf to hold all the tax books that have to do with all the rules and regulations of the income tax. So I just want to, before concluding, I just wanted to speak to you about something from the International, or the Internal Revenue Code. It is the last sentence of Section 509A of the Code. And it reads, for purposes of paragraph 3, an organization described in paragraph 2 shall be deemed to include an organization described in section 501C4, 5, or 6, which would be described in paragraph 2 if it were an organization described in section 501C3. And that's just one sentence out of those 57 feet of books. Well, it's time for me to head back to Washington and get to work. But before we leave, I want to show you something that Jeremiah gave me the last time that I visited your good state. You can read it. He told me that it would help cut taxes down to size. And here it is, our original tax acts. Now, I've been sharpening this thing. Now let's get back to Washington and put it to use. Thank you, and God bless you all.
President Ronald Reagan making a very stirring speech, and he did it fairly specific. He supports that Senate 15 and 27% tax brackets, and he didn't mince any words. Now Mayor Larry registers up, and he's going to make some presentations.
Mr. President, you have paid us great honor to come to Dothan, Alabama. We're most appreciative for your coming and giving us the support you have, and we're all behind your tax reform efforts, and we support you wholeheartedly. And we also appreciate that you read the Bible, and you saw where Genesis 37:17 said, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. And we're glad that you did that. You always tell us, may God bless you. We say to you, may God bless you, Mr. President. We love you very much. We have a couple of gifts for you. One is down home in high style Southern recipes. I know how you went into that chicken, and these are good recipes, and your wife will certainly enjoy it, Mrs. Reagan and the White House staff. So we present that to you, and the press, I'm sure, would like to get a copy of that. There's some of our secrets in there. Mr. Donaldson, know they probably like that, Mr. President. And Mr. President, we give you a very special key to the city, and this key will get you anywhere you want to in Dothan, Alabama. We're delighted to do that for you, and we want to give this to you as a token of our affection and love for you, Mr. President. We're glad you came to our wonderful city.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. May God bless you. You're up here and over to you all. Thank you all very much.
President Ronald Reagan making a very well-accepted speech on tax reform today. He didn't deal with politics, just like they said they would not. And on his tax reform speech, he did talk in specifics. What he said was not new. It was a repeat, really, of what he's been pushing for all along. That is a two-bracket tax system with various other things going in it. Wally Heisley, you heard the president. You heard him talk about the things he likes. He likes that Senate package, don't you?
I think he does, and as we said before, in accordance with the Senate version, there will be two brackets, 15% and 27%, and one other thing that he indicated pretty quickly was that for this area, he was concerned about farming, and what he was speaking about was the prepaid expenses that tax shelters have used before, where an individual that is not a farmer would deduct prepaid expenses at the end of the year and didn't conduct his farming with prepaid expenses for a long period of time. So that he has tried to eliminate that by making, in this case, true farmers capitalize those expenses, and he's saying that he wants to limit deductions to true farmers and get other income interest out of the farming business.
Is that a radical thing?
It's not radical. It's been proposed before. And it's just that the farming industry has been in such a financial condition of late that they have been allowed to deduct those expenses, but it's other interest groups that have taken the greatest advantage of that deduction. So now you're going to have to capitalize those expenses, and it will not be of interest to anyone other than a farmer.
The president has already left the Civic Center. He's entering his limousine. We do not have camera coverage in the back room where he enters his car. He'll be pulling back out, traveling along a portion of the same inward route that he came in on. We'll be able to pick up that in just a moment for you. We hope that we'll be able to get to John Michael, who's down on the floor, to get some comments from him in just a moment. As soon as some of the crowd starts milling around. You know, at the very beginning, when the president was coming in, they asked that all the people in the Civic Center remain seated until the president left the room. Well, naturally, that didn't happen, or wasn't expected for that matter, when the president made such a stirring speech, first speech in the history of the state of Alabama in the city of Dothan by a president, that people were going to reward him, and they reward him very strongly with a wonderful standing ovation. It was a good speech. It was, again, nothing really that new, nothing more specific than an endorsement for that Senate version. That Senate version, along with the House version, is still at odds with each other. And, of course, the Senate and the House are on 4th of July holiday right now. And they'll be reconvening on the 14th of July. And they'll be taking up the differing portions of the tax bill in a conference group. And when that happens, we'll see what maybe the final issue looks like toward the end of August. The president should be leaving the Civic Center very shortly. The limousine will again retrace its same path, at least back along the reviewing area. We don't know how many people are still out there. If we get an opportunity, we'll look back along the motorcade. It is hot in Dothan, Alabama. It's probably bordering 100 degrees along the edge of John Murphy Boulevard. So I imagine a lot of the people have sought shade and cool since the president entered the Civic Center. The crowd, again, were very vocal. They like this man. People like this man down in Alabama and all over the country, for that matter. And as soon as we get a chance, again, we'll talk with John Michael and Stacy Weimer, who are at the Civic Center, and see how their feelings are as far as the audience's acceptance and being able to get a hold of some of the officials that were there and get some comments from them. As a matter of fact, we see now John Michael making a preparation to talk with our State Senator Chip Bailey. John, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, John. We've got here a lot of activity going on. I've got Chip Bailey with me. And, John, is there anything you would like to ask Chip, or you want me to just throw a question at him?
Well, if Chip can hear me, you heard what the president said about the changes he wants to see. Now, there is a report in one of the newspapers, Chip Bailey, that came out recently that says this federal tax overhaul would result in sharply higher state taxes. Have you reviewed this? Do you feel like this new tax reform package would hurt us in Alabama?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, John. I can hear you, but unfortunately Chip can't. But you had the same thing in mind that I... University occasions that if tax reform is granted as the president wants, then what that is going to mean as an end result is that the states involved all over the country are going to have to increase our taxes in order to make up for cuts in federal spending. Now, as a state senator, how do you feel about that possibility and Alabama's ability to cope with any cuts from the federal level?
Well, certainly. We're already seeing the effects of Graham-Rudman, which has severely cut back our federal funds. The theory of the Reaganomics, in effect, is that these tax cuts are going to stimulate the economy and in effect, lower the rate of inflation. And we have seen them do that since the 1980 tax cut. So we have seen good results as a result of his previous tax program. And so I think that there is reason to believe that future cuts would continue to stimulate the economy and continue to lower the rate of inflation. So he has a track record at this time, which I think he can run on. The results have been good, even for the state of Alabama.
Would you be willing to support more state-level taxes and state-controlled government functions in exchange for a loosening on the federal level?
Well, I would rather see the taxes, if they have to have taxes, I would rather see them levied at the state level because they're far more flexible here at this level and can be lowered if the opportunity arises to do so much more easily than they can if they're coming out of Washington. At this point, however, I don't see a great need in Alabama for new taxes. We have had a strong economy here in Alabama the last few years. Our sales taxes are up. There may be some areas where we do need reform. We're the only state that doesn't tax pari-mutuel betting. A few other areas where there are exemptions, loopholes that need to be closed. As far as sweeping tax changes, I don't foresee that in Alabama.
I was telling someone a moment ago, earlier before the president began speaking, that a conservative or a Democrat in Alabama would be called a Republican in Washington. As a Democrat, as a state senator from Alabama, how do you feel about this Republican president and the visit that he just made to Dothan, Alabama?
John, you know, historically in Alabama, there have been, the Southern Democrat has always voted more consistently with the Republican Party in Congress than the Democratic Party. And we see that continuing today. And I'm proud to have Ronald Reagan in Alabama and Houston County particularly. It's appropriate he should be here because our county has always supported the Republican Party back since the Eisenhower days.
Okay, Chip, we see the motorcade leaving here. Do we have any comments from out on the motorcade route?
John Michael, you see the motorcade has just left the Civic Center. It is about to enter John Murphy Boulevard again, and it's making its turn out beside the Civic Center. You can see it. Sometimes watching it on television, you kind of lose the perspective as to where you are, but now it's back out on John Murphy. And yes, there's still a large number of people out. They're moving very quickly. They're heading back to the airport. The president will be flying back to Washington. As you can see, there's no hesitation. People are waving. As a matter of fact, as they came in very quickly. We had thought they'd cruise really slowly and be able to let the president speak to them via loudspeaker system. It didn't happen that way. The crowds have really gone down since he came in, mainly because of the heat and the length of the stay inside the Civic Center. He was in there for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. You can see now he's gone beyond our camera sight. It should be topping the hill very shortly, and President Reagan's visit to the Civic Center in the downtown area of Dothan will be history, one to go in our books for a long, long time to come. He made a very good speech on tax reform. He's a well-liked president, and he's pushing hard for this Senate version. Of course, as I told you a moment ago, there's a lot of conference discussions on this still to come, and just how it will affect Alabama and all of us, we'll have to wait and see. And we'll be back in just a moment with more coverage. We'll talk with John Michael, Stacy Reimer, and Kim Gooderland along the motorcade routes, and also we'll join Mike Lewis a little later at the airport. We'll be back in just a moment.
Things are jumping at Tri-State Toyota with selection, financing, deals. It's all at Tri-State Toyota. And Tri-State Toyota has just received the all-new 1986.5 Toyota Supra, a sports car you must see and drive. Tri-State Toyota, the #1 Toyota dealer in the area because they sell cars.
If you've ever dreamed of owning a country estate, you must see this beautiful 4-bedroom, 3-bath home with 4,079 square feet of living space for sale by the owner. It features a spacious grand room, formal dining room, large kitchen with built-in appliances, a huge game room, screened porch, laundry room, 2 fireplaces, garden tub in the master bath, custom draperies, intercom system, security system, and over 10 acres of fenced land and stables. For more information, call 792-3195. WTVY, Channel 4, Dothan, Alabama.
And welcome back to our special coverage of presidential visit to the city of Dothan and the Wiregrass. An exciting day for all of us, and we're mighty proud to say that he came, he made a good speech, had a good lunch, and now he's on his way back to the airport, and we'll pick up his arrival at the airport within about the next 10 to 15 minutes. He will be, as I understand, meeting and reviewing the successful U.S. helicopter team, the team that plays first in the world competitions in England. Just a few weeks back, we'll be able to go in and maybe see that ceremony. Kim Gooderland is down on the motorcade route. And Kim, it must be awfully hot.
Any cooler, John, since the last time we talked earlier. It's gotten a lot hotter, but I guarantee you it's been worth it. What an exciting experience to see the President of the United States, the highest-ranking official in the U.S. I must admit that as a reporter I should be used to covering big events, but my heart took a flip-flop as President Reagan drove down the motorcade route in his limousine, passing by thousands and thousands of spectators. And as he turned in, heading toward the Civic Center here at the corner of Poplar Head Park, it was just very exciting. I got to see him clearly. He was waving and smiling broadly, clearly impressed with the crowd and the greeting that he got from the city of Dothan. Of course, the crowds have gone down. The heat here has been unbearable. And at first, there were thousands and thousands of people here this morning, but now there are only a couple of hundred along the motorcade route because of the heat. Several people had to be trucked away by rescue squads this morning because of the heat. But it has been an exciting day. I've been very, very impressed with the patriotic spirit that has been shown by the city of Dothan today. Reagan said he wanted a down-home visit with the city of Dothan. Well, he has seen Southern hospitality at its best.
And did you get a chance to see the president when he came by? Could you see him clearly?
Clearly, John, and as a matter of fact, city officials have stressed this during the whole week. They said if you want a glimpse of the president, you will be able to see him clearly. Please come out to the motorcade route, and that's exactly what happened. The window was big. It was clear. I got to see a clear vision of him. I did sneak into the Civic Center, so I did get to see him out there speaking, but you could see him clearly, and obviously the crowds believed it. We have been telling that to the crowds all week long. They believed it. They did turn out in large numbers despite the heat.
We were told, Kim, that there may have been a little disappointment in the fact that when the motorcade arrived, that it arrived and passed through so quickly.
You could tell that it happened so quickly. The motorcade was here, and people really didn't get a chance to see President Reagan very long. They sort of swished him by, and then as he left, he went by even quicker. The crowd wasn't, you could tell they weren't real excited because they were just sort of taken in awe. They were oohing and ahhing, and they were waving their flags. But I could tell there was just a slight disappointment, but I'm sure the hours of wait were well worth it.
All right, thank you very much, Kim Gooderland. Down on the motorcade where it's very hot. Let's go back to the Civic Center now and get some more comments on how the people there felt about the visit of President Reagan. Stacy Reimer, I know you're about ready to talk to Eustace Bishop, so
certainly am.
Let's see what he feels about this visit.
Well, here I am with Eustace Bishop, as John just mentioned, who has been a lifetime, well not a lifetime, but here a Dothan resident for 40 years, a prominent businessman at that. Tell me how you feel about Reagan's speech today.
I think Mr. Reagan made a speech just as similar to a down-home person as we could have. And I believe the people in this group were behind him. I think all the people in this area are behind him. I believe he's going to make the kind of America that we can all enjoy being a part of.
Did you ever feel that the president might one day visit this Wiregrass area?
I never thought I'd lived long enough to see a president come to Dothan, Alabama. It's a great day for all of us.
Well, I know it is, and you recently just won, or was awarded, the Heritage Award, correctly, on the 4th of July. Isn't that right?
That's correct, and I feel very honored to have received it because there are many wonderful people who have worked for the Wiregrass to build it up, and I was fortunate enough to live here during a time when many of these people were most active, and I tried to do my part, that's all.
And obviously with today's beautiful array of events, we are still active and have many volunteers helping prep up Dothan for the President's visit.
I think we have a wonderful community, and I believe we can do anything we make up our minds to do.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are definitely an inspiration.
Well, thank you so much.
John?
All right, thank you very much, Stacy Reimer. She was talking to Eustace Bishop at the Dothan Civic Center. The President has already left the Civic Center, and it looks like he'll be heading on out to the airport very quickly, and as soon as he gets out there, then we'll be able to go there and maybe pick up a portion of the ceremony that he's expected to be involved in with that U.S. helicopter team. John Michael's also at the Civic Center, and he's standing by to talk with someone, so let's go back inside and get other comments about the President's speech.
How you doing?
I've got...
How you doing?
Good. Right here. Okay.
Here, practice over me that way.
Okay, I've got headline. All right, we're waiting for John Michael, and then with the crowd jostling around, you saw what that was like. You got to grab whatever you can grab and hang on when people start to leave. Just a room full of people, but also a room full of reporters, too, and everybody's trying to get their opportunity to say some things. And John Michael kind of got a little jostle there. Let's go back. I know he's got control of that microphone now, and get some comments from him. John, you're there with Howell Heflin.
Yes, John, I've got Senator Howell Heflin here. And Senator, first of all, how do you feel about the President's remarks today?
All right, but where's your camera? I can't see
right here, right where the light is.
There's no camera there. You had me turned around. All right, well, I thought he made an excellent speech. He set forth some of the criteria that he would like to have in the tax bill coming out of conference, and I think it will. It's basically some of the general provisions that are in the Senate bill. I think overall it's a good bill. It's got a lot of good in it, but it's got some bad, and but I think the good outweighs the bad, and I think that it will be approved, and I think he'll sign it before Labor Day.
I know that you have been responsible in recent weeks for spearheading the fight to make sure that income averaging stays in as a possibility for farmers who may have a good year one year and a bad the next. Do you have any feelings about that now?
Well, I believe it'll stay. We had a battle on the Senate floor, one of the few amendments that was adopted. But nevertheless, some of the bad of the tax bill is I don't think it treats the farmer fairly. The farmer had some provisions because of the volatile nature of that business, the uncertainty of that business, and really tax policy had been designed to help them. It eliminated a lot of that. Income averaging was very important to the farmers, and we were successful in getting that put back in. We were successful in getting a refund of some investment tax credit provisions. I believe they will stay in, but nevertheless, I wish the farmers would be better treated under this bill.
How optimistic are you that the President will get what he told us he wanted today?
Well, I think he'll basically get it. I think that there'll be some changes, but I think, for example, I think IRAs will be restored altogether. He mentioned that for if you had a retirement plan, which is a Senate version, but I believe all IRAs will be restored. I believe we'll end up with some way to deduct sales tax. I don't think you in effect ought to be taxing a tax. And in effect, if you tax the state when they tax somebody, and you ought to be allowed to deduct, that's constitutional in my judgment. They ought to recognize there are two entities of government, the state and the federal government, and we ought not to be paying a tax on a tax.
Of course, you have been to Dothan, Alabama many, many times and all over Houston County through your years in the Senate. How do you feel about the choice of the President of the United States to come to Dothan, Alabama?
Well, I think he's been in Alabama a good deal in the last year or two. He will be, in my judgment, in Alabama between now and the general election. I frankly think it's got something to do with the upcoming senatorial race. I mean, in all honesty, I think that is true, and I think you have to admit it. And I think he probably would admit it if asked. But I think that's part of it.
You think then that in the final analysis that the president will get pretty much what he wants out of tax reform, but you're hoping for some changes that will benefit particularly farmers?
That's right.
John, any comments from you?
John Michael, Senator Heflin had made a statement that he feels that the IRAs will be restored. Could you get him to elaborate on that?
Okay, John is asking Senator Heflin about your comment that you feel all IRA deductions will be restored. How do you feel that's going to happen? Most of what you hear is only for those people who do not have some other pension plan they participate in.
Well, IRAs came about as an idea to increase savings, to come along to supplement Social Security, to help everybody have a retirement plan. Even if you've got a retirement plan, most of them need something like IRAs. When we had the Social Security Rescue Bill some 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big movement then to have IRAs as a part of the Social Security plan. The rationale for IRAs has been preached by the Republicans and by the Republican administration. I don't see them now at this time eliminating that, saying that that's bad. I can't see it. I think they will accept it, and I think there is enough movement among the people as a whole to try to get the present IRA provisions retained in the tax laws.
John? There's also another thing, John Michael, that he had mentioned that would be very important to people is the sales tax deductions and also interest on small loans, such as credit card loans and other loans other than maybe home mortgage loans. An elimination of that interest and an elimination of sales taxes. Does he think there's some way that some of that can be salvaged and saved for the future?
Okay, the question now, Senator Heflin, is in regard to deductions. You mentioned that you feel like sales tax deductions should remain. Interest deductions, mortgage interest, of course, is a big one that I don't think anyone is in a mood to do away with right now. But what about interest on small loans?
Well, unfortunately, the Senate bill is a bad bill for consumer credit other than the mortgage interest payments that you're paying on a first home and a second home. Now, it seems to me that it would be more reasonable and logical to have consumer credit, like if you're buying an automobile on an installment plan, you're buying household appliances on an installment plan, to deduct that interest rather than having it wide open in regards to a second home, a condominium, which some rich millionaire could build for $2 million, and he could deduct all of the interest that he might pay on it on an installment plan. I think it's more for the average person, the poor person, the middle-class person, that he ought to be able to deduct the interest that he's paying on an automobile purchase on the installment plan.
Thank you very much, Senator Heflin. Appreciate it. John?
And that was John Michael talking with Senator Howell Heflin. And we're talking about the various parts of the President's speech and also the parts of that Senate and House versions of tax reform. The President's motorcade is now arriving at the airport. Let's go back out to the airport now. Mike Lewis is out there. We'll talk to him in just a moment, but we'll see the crowd now lined up at the airport, a considerable crowd compared to the group that was there earlier. The public was not allowed at the airport. It was cordoned off for security reasons. As a matter of fact, we've had some callers wanting to know what's the motorcade route going back to the airport. They want to get out and see the President. Well, that particular route was kept secret, again, for security reasons. The only route that was made public, of course, was up and down the John Murphy Boulevard. You see the advanced Dothan City Police car now. In just a moment, the presidential motorcade will roll in. And then a little bit later on, we'll get a chance maybe to talk with Mike Lewis about what's been going on at the airport ever since then. The President is expected to participate in a congratulatory ceremony for those pilots who became the best pilots in the whole world that U.S. and world helicopter competitions that were held in England. Most of them were Fort Rucker pilots. Some were not. One group was from Texas, but they were all Americans. And they all did a very fine job at the helicopter competitions, winning the individual as well as the team. There's the president's limousine. You can see the troops from Fort Rucker off to your right now. In a moment, the president will get out. I don't know if he'll pass in review as the commander-in-chief normally would do in circumstances like this. Of course, this is something fairly new. This was not on the normal schedule that was established a few days ago for the president's visit. Well, the president is over now, standing in front of the troops. He's now about to walk amongst them. They're going to get some pictures with the winning team. The team is made up of about 15 people, crew members, pilots, co-pilots, or navigators, as the co-pilots are called. You see the president getting his picture taken with his group. Of course, they'll have a round of handshakes. It's got to be very hot out on the tarmac. There's a presentation of a T-shirt. And you talk about something that is all-American. The T-shirt is definitely all-American. And I'm not sure what that symbol is on it. It would have to do something with air assault, since Fort Rucker is home of Army aviation. The president making some statements. We cannot identify at this point who he's talking to, but I believe he is the commander of the group that went to Europe, competed in the World Helicopter Championships, and brought home almost all of the trophies. In just a moment, the president will be boarding Air Force One. He'll be on his way back to Washington. His trip to Dothan, a part of history. He came here today to make a statement on tax reform. He did just that. No politicking. Of course, as you heard Howard Heflin say just a moment ago, just by his Republican presence, that's politicking within itself. But the president has not been out there working as a member of the GOP. He's been doing presidential things all morning and afternoon that he's been in Dothan. See him passing now amongst the pilots, shaking hands, personally congratulating them. He feels so at home in crowds like this. I said much earlier that you can see this president hugging little children, shaking hands, old people, young people, cities, gatherings all over America and all over the world. He's as comfortable in any environment, any surroundings, from the highest point of sophistication down to, maybe I guess I use the term non-sophistication for lack of any other word for other people. He's very, very adamant about this Senate version of the tax reform bill. He wants that, and he's pushing hard. That's why he came to Dothan. That's the reason he was selected to come to Dothan for this visit. Now, he selected Dothan for this visit. They asked him just last week to come over. Bill Lenz, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Maryland Area Register, they called and asked the White House, and they said, sure. Live now from the Dothan Houston County Airport, the president speaking to the winning pilots of the World Helicopter Team. This is an unscheduled performance by the president, but one he seems to be really enjoying. And I know, of course, the pilots are. We got Mike Lewis in that crowd someplace. If Mike could get close to a microphone, we get some comments out of him as to his feelings and his observations out there.
John, I'm here right now, if you can hear me. And we, of course, looking at these, as you mentioned, the 8 teams with the precision helicopter team from Fort Rucker, the one that took the U.S. Reagan giving his farewell to the crowd.
We had the same problem earlier, some cable problems apparently, some video problems at the airport. He's about to get ready to go home. He came, did what he intended. Now all the dignitaries will join him. In a moment, Air Force One will taxi away from the Dothan Houston County Airport and head back to Washington. Whatever duties this president has to do today, he'll be back in his office probably in 3.5, maybe 4 hours, able to continue to do those. He's a hard-working person. They say he puts in a lot of hours, sometimes as many as 18 hours. There's been reports and pictures of the president nodding off at certain meetings. Matter of fact, there was one story about a meeting in which some of his staff members were arguing back and forth, and he'd just sit there, had his hand over his eyes, and then it was over, he'd say, okay, next subject. So he sort of rules things by letting things go by him. But I tell you, this president lets very little slip by him. He's had a fine day in Dothan, and he has talked about tax reform, and tax reform was the thing that he wanted to come here and do. And Wally Hinesley, he didn't come here to promote anything else. He did want to talk about the very specific issues in this tax reform package, namely the brackets. He likes to see those brackets corrected. He wants to see them narrowed down to maybe just a couple. And that's the difference, I think, the supreme difference between the Senate and the House version. Is that correct?
That's right. The House version has 4 brackets. The Senate version has 2. And initially the president had proposed 3 brackets himself. And since that time, the Senate, even after the passage of this bill, has sent a sense of the Senate to the committee, which is nothing more than a direction by the members of the Senate that will be a part of the joint committee that there are certain things they still would like done, even though they've passed the bill in its present form. And one of those is to continue to chip away and to lower the effect of this bill on middle-income taxpayers. It does, in certain instances, create a larger tax burden on middle-income taxpayers. But on the other hand, it does create more of a balance with corporations. For instance, the House bill proposes a 36% maximum tax bracket. Currently, it's at 46% above $100,000. And you heard President Reagan say that the Senate version does reduce that to 33% for corporations. But across the board, more people are going to be paying taxes. And he also mentioned that he wanted to make sure that the 6 million people that were going to be left off of the tax rolls as far as the Senate version is concerned, that be preserved. And the way that's done is he has instituted in the Senate version, or the Senate has instituted, I should say, the standard deduction. We currently have the 0 bracket amount, which is really, to the layman, the standard deduction. But he is raising those amounts, which will reduce the number of people that actually have to file income taxes. So those were the main points that he touched on.
If we have the shot of the airport, we might want to go back out there and see. I know we were having some video problems with that, but we may want to go back out there and see Air Force One as it takes off, and at least be able to wave our own fond farewell to the president as we discuss and talk about his tax reform package. Wally Hinesley is a tax attorney. He's been with us all afternoon. We haven't had a great opportunity to get into any in-depth discussion. Things have been moving along fairly quickly throughout this program. And the president himself moved quickly from the airport into the city, and then from the city to the Civic Center, where he did a lot of handshaking and then some chicken eating. And then he got up very quickly to make a speech. A speech lasted about 20 minutes, which is what he expected. And Mayor Register made some presentations to the president, and then just that quickly he was out the door and down the motorcade and eyes at the airport on his way back to Washington. So that's a quick trip to Dothan from Washington, then back to Washington. And that Air Force One is getting ready to go, and we'll go back out there, and I hope we can get an opportunity to get back with Mike Lewis. We were talking with him earlier when we were having some interference, and we lost him then. So maybe if we get a chance, we can come back and see him and talk with him for a moment. You see Air Force One now taxiing out from the Dothan-Houston County Airport. Wally, do you think the president scored some real serious points with this speech?
I think he really has taken the opportunity to push his tax bill in the smaller cities. He doesn't go to New York or Chicago to push his bill. He generally goes to smaller areas. He mentioned Oshkosh, Dothan, and other places. But I think the point that he's trying to make is that a tax bill will be passed this year. And even though he doesn't agree with all of the